I've gotta say, this feels like one of the more arbitrary movie reviews I've ever posted. I saw Despicable Me 4, so I'm gonna talk about it, but let's face it, I doubt many people are gonna sit down and watch reviews on YouTube to decide whether or not they're gonna go see this, because this franchise has become very transparent about the fact that it's solely fast food type movie junk for children. Everybody loves a good story about the villain becoming the hero, and that's one of the things that I liked about the first Despicable Me. It was fun, it had a good story, some of the humor was a bit lowbrow for sure, but I still think it's a solid film. The sequel was okay, but gun to my head, everything after that, I could not tell you the plot of any of the other sequels, or the Minions spin-off films, which I absolutely loathe. I will never understand why they thought Minions should get their own movie, because those characters are only good in small doses. One thing I can at least do is give you an idea of how this compares to its predecessor, so let's jump into the story, or lack thereof, in Despicable Me 4. We once again follow Gru, his wife Lucy, and his 3 adopted children, as well as his baby. Now, I can't remember if he even had a baby in the last one, or if that's a new addition. Anyways, an old nemesis of Gru's named Maxime Lemal, played by Will Ferrell, escapes from prison and he's after Gru, so now he has to move his entire family to a new town and they have to assume secret identities so that this guy doesn't find them. That's about it. That's the story. And then there's about 100 subplots going on throughout the entire film, and eventually this villain does catch up to him and we have this showdown in the third act, but the rest of the movie has nothing to do with all that crap. I'm being generous by even calling these subplots because they're not subplots. They really have no merit and no point in being in the film other than to set up a bunch of gags. That's what everything in this movie is. Every storyline is to set up some sort of joke that is usually pretty low-hanging fruit, and I don't know, I feel like children have better things to watch than this junk. This stuff just gets so damn repetitive. Oh look, there's a minion asleep on the bus and now the other minions are drawing a funny looking nose on him. That's hilarious. Oh look over there, another one of the minions got his head stuck in a vending machine and now the other ones are slapping him in the butt as he struggles to get out. So funny. Oh my god, it gets tedious. To give credit where due, there were a couple of sequences that I thought were fun. For instance, when they move to this new town, Gru tries to befriend his neighbors, and they have a young daughter who finds out who Gru is and learns his true identity, and she blackmails him into helping her commit a heist that I thought was probably the most entertaining sequence in the movie because it's the most ridiculous one. It goes wild with it, and it tries to have fun, and it's the closest I felt to the original storyline in the first film. Because let's face it, that first movie was about Gru trying to steal the literal moon. It feels kind of silly to even title these movies Despicable Me anymore because Gru doesn't really do anything despicable anymore. He's a spy. He's not a villain. He's a part of the Anti-Villain League, a team of agents who literally stop supervillains. But of course it doesn't matter. These movies make a ton of money for Illumination, so they're gonna keep shooting them out, and they add a bunch new spins on these characters in this film. For instance, the Minions get injected with super serum because they're now joining the Anti-Villain League for some reason. I don't know who in the world would decide that they are competent enough for that type of honor, but when they're injected with this super serum, they all grow super big and have different abilities. So I'm sure that'll sell a bunch of toys. Another moment that I thought was kind of fun is Lucy assumes a new identity, and her character that she's playing is a hairdresser, and she's always wanted to be one, so she takes a stab at it and totally wrecks this lady's hair, like creates a massive bald spot on the top of her head. And then she later runs into this woman in the supermarket and there's this big chase scene. It was funny, it was entertaining, and it had no minions in it. I wonder if that's a coincidence, or maybe the minions aren't as funny as the writers of these films seem to think. But those few sequences don't even scratch the surface of all of the secondary nonsense going on in this movie. You've got Gru trying to form a relationship with his infant son who much prefers Lucy to him. It sounds more funny than it actually is, I promise you. Margot, the oldest of the girls, is trying to navigate being thrown into a new school. There were so many opportunities to actually expand on the characters here, and they just don't take it. It's such a throwaway inclusion. Even Steve Carell's lovely voice as Gru is starting to get on my nerves a bit, but to be fair, the writing's not doing him any favors. I'm not going to sit here and act like I have better ideas as to what a story for a new Despicable Me sequel should be, But it's not this, man. It's not this. This movie has hardly any story to it at all. It has no heart. There are no moments where the characters sit down and actually reflect on the things that are happening, or there's no progressing of any relationships. It's just constant nonsense happening for the sake of keeping a grin on your 6-year-old son or daughter. And it might seem a little bit shallow to critique a movie for that. I mean, if you want to take your kids to something and have them be entertained, this will probably suffice, although I would say I can't see any child over the age of like 7 or 8 actually liking this genuinely. But when it comes to something like this versus, let's say, Inside Out 2, there's just no comparison, because Inside Out 2 actually has genuine themes, characters that have personalities and connected relationships, and you can actually apply things from that film to the real world, and children can do so as well. There's no substance in Despicable Me 4, so I'm going to give this film 2 stars. I'm really struggling to remember a single thing about the plot of the third one other than the fact that Gru had like a twin brother or something. I would say this film is about on par with that. It's the same crap, just recycled. There's nothing new, and there's certainly nothing more creative about it than the story of the last one. So that is my quick take on Despicable Me 4. If you have seen the film, drop down into the comments and let me know. Do you agree with me, or am I being kind of harsh on this? I don't know. It just feels like such shallow, dull entertainment when there are so many better options out there. And I really could care less about getting any more films in this franchise. Before you take off, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.